Welcome back to another video, and it's going to be the start of a series on this Strimmer job lot I bought for just 60 quid. 2 echoes, 2 steels and a Tanaka. I'm thinking I'm probably going to start with the Tanaka on the far left. This one here, because it's the most complete, it's in the best condition visually. So I think I'm going to grab that, try and get that started, and then go for the Echo afterward that's next to it. The Echo SMR 222 ES. That one there. We'll do that one second. So I'm going to start with the Tanaka TBC 270 PFS. And that's what that model is right there. So we're going to start with that first. It's got a head and everything. So we're going to start by taking the air filter cover off. And I notice there's no return line, but that's not a problem for now. I will give it a few pulls while I'm down here just to see if compression is good. So with the throttle wide open, I'm going to give it a spray of Easy Start, and I'm going to give it some pulls, and it starts and runs and dies, which obviously means we need to go into the carb. So it's possibly a runner, but I like to check how much compression there actually is anyway. So I'm going to whack on the compression tester, and we have 100 pounds of compression. Let me just focus that picture up for you, just so you can see. There we go, and we've got 100 pounds of compression, which is good. So we're going to get some fuel in and see if it fires up on its own now. Even though there's no return line, I'm going to still prime it up just to get some fuel purging through that carb. So let's see what happens. Fingers crossed it starts on its own without anything sprayed down the throat. So it took some pulls, but it started and running, revving up how it should be. But the fuel lines are a bit hard and could do with probably cleaning out the tank and various things like that. It idles too. It's a little shaky, possibly just needs new fuel lines, like I said. So I'm going to start by taking the engine off the shaft by removing the throttle cable. Easiest way is to squeeze it in, hold the black tab, and then let go of your trigger, and it will just pop out. And then this part of your cable is just a nut holding it in. It's just screwed into that metal tab. So just loosen it off, and you can normally turn it off like this. And then once that is off of the machine, takes a while to get it off. Once that's off the machine, just unplug this, which is your keel wire. And that will be everything that you've got to take off. After that's unplugged, sometimes you just need to get a little flathead in there just to release the tab. So after that, you want to take these 2 screws out, or at least loosen the one on the left, and then take this one fully out, because that's what's holding your shaft onto your engine. And the engine will just come off, just like that. So take these 2 screws out, that will release your air filter housing. And it will release your carb and everything from the machine as well. So just be careful you don't lose anything. So everything's loose now. So just pop these old fuel lines off, because they're good for nothing. They're too perished or too hard. They're not sealing right. So while we got it apart, you might as well put some fresh ones in. Check your fuel tank grommets as well, and check the seal in this fuel cap. So the tank grommets, I believe, were seeping slightly as well, but I've got some new fuel line, new tank grommets. I've got some new purge bulbs as well. So we're going to change all that out. So I'm going to start by putting our fuel line and tank grommet in first. Normally you can put it in with the fuel filter, but with this you have to do it this way. So I can put the fuel filter on the other end. Sometimes you have to stretch the end out, like I'm doing here, because otherwise they can be an absolute ball ache to get on. And then just twist that on, make sure it's on as far as you can get it. And then you want to make sure it's sat in the lowest part of the tank, just so it can pick up as much fuel as possible. So it's just the return line to sort out now. This one's in, it's all solid, it's not moving, it's not spinning. So I didn't have nothing to fit in here. I think it does have another little grommet, but I had this, I had that fuel line and it was wide enough for the hole. So I'm just going to spray the carb down. Normally I wouldn't even bother, but it's really dirty. So while I've got it off the machine, I'm just going to give it a spray down and a clean up. And then we're going to pop these 4 screws out here. Because I want to replace that purge bulb with a fresh one. And then I'd plug it all in and just test it while it's off the machine like this. And there we go. The purge bulb is filling, means it's working okay. So we're going to put all that back on, screw it all back on, button it up. Make sure these screws are tight against the machine. So once that's all back on, I'm going to fill it up with some fresh fuel. Get some nice mix, get some good oil, good quality oil, nice mix in there and fill it up. Purge the absolute snot out of it. Everyone's like, oh, 3 times, 5 times, this many times. No, just 20 times, doesn't matter. Then I'm just going to blow out the air filter housing because it was full of crud. Put a brand new air filter in. And then I'm going to clean out the air filter cover as well because that was full of cack. So might as well clean it out while you've got it off the machine. So we're going to button that back on. Now we've got the shaft. I'm going to put some thin grease over this end of the shaft. It's just copper grease spray. I just cake it in that, just so it's got a nice layer on it. At least there's something there, just to stop it from going dry. So then on the head end, you've got this screw here. This is your grease hole. So you take this screw out, that's actually your grease hole. But I actually want to take it off the shaft and check the other end of it as well. So you undo this screw here, and that will release it from the shaft. So just check the quality of the grease now. This is the perfect opportunity to refresh it if it needs it. But if you look at this grease, it's actually fine. Nothing wrong with that. I'm not cleaning that out, putting fresh grease in it when it's fine. And this end's fine too, which tells me that the grease that's in the actual gears itself is probably okay as well. So just put that back on and reinstall the screws the same way you took it off. Just make sure that they're in there snug. And then, yeah, just tighten these screws down. And then before we put it back on the machine, I'm going to probably give the throttle cable a little spray of WD-40 and just work that down by pulling the trigger. Work that down. So now we're going to get the engine and the shaft and we're going to slide our shaft back on and just make sure everything stays lined up. Otherwise you're going to have problems. So there's an indication here. This line and this arrow indicates how it should be lined up. Not all of them have that, but a fair few that I've fixed do. And then you just want to put these 2 screws back in and make sure they're nice and buttoned down. Make sure that this one especially is nice and tight in there because that's what holds your shaft in. Then you just want to get your kill wire, plug that back in, screw this back into that metal tab, all the reverse of what you did earlier. Screw this back into this metal tab all the way to where the nut is, and then just link that wire into the throttle. and then give it a couple of pulls, just like that, just to make sure it's working how it should be. Now we're going to give it a test. So we fired it up, we're going to give it a little test. We want to know what it's like cutting. There's a cat just run across the ways there. Yeah, I just want to know how it's cut. It's only smoking like that because I've put quite a heavy mix of oil in it, because I don't know how long it's been sitting. So I wanted to make sure everything got a good bit of lubrication on its first run, just to wear it back in a bit. It could have been sitting for years. So now we're going to give it a nice clean. Now we know it's working. I'm going to give it a nice good clean on the outside. I clean everything I service, because when people come and buy stuff, the first thing they're going to look at is how new does it look, how clean is it. If it's covered in mud and grass and oil and everything else, they're going to turn their nose up at it. Simple as that. It's just like when you sell a new car. You're going to clean it. You're going to make sure it's clean inside and out. So I'm just going to make sure I give it a good jet washing off. Make sure it's nice and clean. So that I think I'm doing all right with this job lot, because 60 quid I paid for all them. And this first one I got lucky with. It didn't need much. It just needed a general service, you know, fuel lines and things like that. Tanaka TBC 270 PFS, and that's part one of this series. Part two will be on the Echo. So it looks nice and clean now, fully serviced and ready to go. Lovely jubbly. I hope you liked the video, and we'll be back soon for part two.
My life is not an easy dose. I'm smacking bats on your knee when you feel my pops. I'm making your demons cross. How can you hurt me? The amount that I've damaged myself. I'm just immune to it, G. You need to